All right. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi, Kalayim, Perek Aleph, Halacha, Beis, Gimel, and Daled, Dav Gimel. We left off on Dav Gimel Amud Aleph, beginning of the second line, Akishus u'habatiach ma Omar ba Rabbi Yehuda. So let's quickly review where we're at. This is very fascinating. In Halacha Beis, right, in the last daf, we had a machlokes between Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda concerning kishus and malafafim. And I know, as we spoke when we learned the Mishnah, that in modern Hebrew, these words are understood one way. There is a big machlokes rishonim what kishus means, what malafafim means. It's mashma from our sugya, as we'll see in a moment when we're speaking about mutations, that the kishus could mutate into a abatiyach, which is a watermelon, and a watermelon could mutate into a malafafim. Let's go with the rishonim that say that kishus is a melon, malafafim is a melon. Kishus is a bland type of melon, and malafafim is a cantaloupe type, a sweet type of melon. It just fits more, but it doesn't matter. It is whatever it means. We're going to just be smarter. We're going to use the words kishus and malafafim. These were the two items that the Mishnah spoke about. The Chachamim say einam kalayim. Einam kalayim means that we don't have to be concerned about marasayim, and you can put two seeds together. And Rabbi Yehuda says yes kalayim. And the Gemara explained what's behind the Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda. And the Gemara says like this: that why do the Chachamim say that kishus and malafafim are not kalayim? And to be faithful to the words of the Gemara, that if you were to take a single seed from the top of the kishus, that's the words of the Gemara, not any seed, the seed that grows on the top. The Gemara says that it could mutate into a abatiyach. It doesn't matter whether it's 1 in 10 or 1 in a million. It's shaykh. If you take the top seed of a watermelon, again, these are the words of the Gemara, it could mutate into a malafafim. The logic of the Chachamim is that since kishus could become an abatiyach could become a malafafim, that's a proof for these halachas that they are one species. Now, when the Gemara gave that logic, it's understood something that we didn't see in the Mishnah. The Mishnah only spoke about kishus and malafafim. The Mishnah did not speak about an abatiyach. But based on the Gemara's understanding, it comes out that really what the Chachamim are saying, they're saying the biggest chiddush, that even a kishus and a malafafim, a kishus never becomes a malafafim. A kishus becomes an abatiyach, and abatiyach becomes a malafafim. A becomes B, B becomes C. So the Mishnah is saying, the Chachamim are saying that A and C is not kalayim. Self-understood that A and B is not kalayim. B and C is not kalayim. Okay. What's Rabbi Yehuda? So Rabbi Yehuda says the following: a malafafim, whatever it means. Let's go with the cantaloupe. A malafafim itself is a crossbreed between a watermelon and what the Gemara calls a tapuach. I learned it better yesterday. There was taka machlokes here amongst the Noisei Kelim, whether tapuach means taka an apple, a tree, or the others that say that tapuach here means a certain type of vegetable that is similar to a tapuach. So again, whatever tapuach means, that the malafafim is a crossbreed between a watermelon and a tapuach. Now, what's the din of a crossbreed? That's the chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda. We don't say that since a crossbreed was born from the watermelon and a tapuach, so therefore it's allowed to be married to them. No. Now that you make a crossbreed, now the malafafim is a category by itself. And that's why the malafafim cannot be united with a kishus. With a kishus. Now, a kishus is not a watermelon. Kishus is not a tapuach. What Rabbi Yehuda certainly did not discuss is what about a kishus and a watermelon? That we didn't have. According to the Chachamim, vadai kishus and a watermelon is allowed to be planted together because the kishus becomes a watermelon. Rabbi Yehuda never spoke about mutations. Rabbi Yehuda was a whole different thing. That's something that's a crossbreed becomes a min bifnei atzmai, which is the malafafim. So don't plant a malafafim with a kishus. But what about a kishus and a watermelon? In other words, the mitzias that a kishus could become a watermelon is a mitzias. There's no argument on that. It could mutate. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't disagree with that. Could be Rabbi Yehuda disagrees that even though there's mutations, A becomes B, B becomes C, but A never becomes C. A never becomes C. Okay, but what about the kishus and the B, A and B? That was where we're at. That's going to be the first kasha of today. It's fascinating, right? The kishus and avatiach, what would be shitas Rabbi Yehuda? Okay.
Rabbi, how did they come up with these mutations? How did they know?
How does the Torah, these are the Ruach HaKodesh, Mamash, Keva. And I really mean it, because that's the way we learn Torah. I'll tell you something even more, that even if Begashmias, it never happened, it wouldn't matter. This is the way I was taught Torah. They're telling you the emes. If the physical world doesn't yet fully align with the way things really are, that's an indication that we are in Golus. Spoke about this when we learned Kiddush HaChodesh. There are such a good words of this idea. It's a whole different world. In other words, we're not learning the world without the Gilui of Torah. We're mamish in the dark. So the world does the best they could. What's called today empirical science. Okay, they look at the Metzias. Problem is that the Metzias, think about Kalayim. What's the whole Kalayim? Whole Kalayim means that the way Hashem made the world, this Bechlal should not exist. It doesn't have a counter Mazel Milmaila. Now, because of Bechira Chavshis, God gave us the power to be godlike. And that's good or the opposite of that. But this is the emes, the Kevan. I think one thing is clear, that when you have this machlekes today, the way I would approach it, what's a kishus? There's a machlekes in Mishonim. What is it? I think even if someone now, a botanist, if that's the word, if a chacham with today's science were to discover what mutates into the watermelon, I think that would be a valid way into clarifying what's a kishus. I think that's a valid approach. That if we know the cucumber never becomes a watermelon, but that melon could become, that would be a raya what kishus means. But whatever that kishus becomes an avatiach is a fact, beruchnias, probably begashmias, and even if not yet, it will become that way. It has to go that way. Okay, let's go right. I hope I answered your question. Now,
yes,
it's going to be a very, it's very interesting, this whole Masechta. The Gemara we learned halacha beis. We're going to review it. The Gemara will clarify what are the other plants mentioned in the halacha beis. No, it's the halacha is like a shulchan aruch, the Mishnah is like what in chutz la'aretz you can plant all vegetables together. Remember that. Even midrabanan, that's why people can have a vegetable patch. Don't get nervous. You can have in your backyard. That's the meaning of many people. This is a din doiraisa only for Eretz Yisrael, which the Chachamim did not extend in chutz la'aretz. You have to know what these items are. The Gemara will clarify it. The challenge we have is that the Gemara is written in a unique Aramaic with Greek. So we do the best we could, and a big yashikach to the art school that he did a great job with many opinions to clarify what the Gemara is saying. Halacha Gimel will be more of Halacha Aleph and Beis, just to know what we're learning in today's stuff. Halacha Gimel will give you 3 more pairs of plants to which the Isser of Kilei Zerayim do not apply. So Halacha Aleph, we had 6 pairs. In Halacha Beis, we had 7 pairs. Elamad, the first pair, Kishus, and Malafafain Machlokes Tanoim. We're going to have an Halacha Gimel again. We're going to have, only 3 pairs, the smallest, 3 pairs, 6 plants, to which it doesn't apply. A Gemara again will clarify what are those plants. And Halacha Daleh that we'll learn today will begin a new topic. Me'ingen le'ingen, but a new topic, which is Har Kava. And we spoke about it, Bekitzer, and we should learn that Rambam will get a greater clarity. Har Kava means to graft. There are 2 ways of grafting. Let's speak about the simplest way of grafting is that you take a branch from one tree and you figure out how to properly insert it in another tree. What grows from that branch is going to be a crossbreed. You didn't plant the seeds together. That's Kilei Zerayim. By trees, there is no Isser of Kilei Zerayim. I'm allowed to plant next to a fruit tree, even in Eretz Yisrael, anything I want, right? Other than vines, we're not talking about grapes, but I can plant next to my tree wheat. No issue. But what am I not allowed to do? Grafting. So we're going to move now to grafting. And the Mishnah will enumerate trees that are not considered two species, which would mean you are allowed to graft one into the other. Then the Mishnah, in contrast, will mention trees that you're not allowed to graft together, which means that you would have thought that they are of the same type. And it's amazing when we learn the Mishnah, we're going to learn about two types that they sound so dissimilar. I think it was the peach and the almond. You would have thought they're similar. We'll speak about it when we get there. Mishnah's machadish, no. They're not the same, and therefore you're not allowed. You got it. If it's one species, you are allowed. Even harkava. If it's considered two varieties of the same species, then you could. Okay? Two species, also same, two subspecies of the same type, you are allowed to. We had in yesterday's daf, whether it's attributed to Rabbi Yochanan or to Rav, a big statement that when Rabbi Yochanan made, or Rav made a statement on the first Mishnah, Chitim and Zunin, the way we explain, the Mishnah says the words twice, Einam Kalayim Zebozeh, that only Chitim and Zunim are allowed to be planted together. But all of the other, right, the first Mishnah mentioned 12 plants in pairs of two, 6 pairs of two, only those two are allowed to be planted together. But one of one group with any one of the other group is not allowed. In Halacha Daled, that the Mishnah speaks about grafting, we're going to see that the Mishnah speaks about 2 pairs that are allowed to be grafted. The Gemara is going to say it's not just 2, it's all 4. But Halacha Daled will not be like Halacha Aleph and Beis and Gimel. There, whatever is not considered kalayim that the Mishnah mentions, the Gemara is going to prove, is all going to be considered, we'll see, type of an apple, as we'll get to that, and you can be marked one on the other. The Gemara is going to list different types of grafts and different type of products that results from it. It's going to be a fascinating daf, and let's go right inside. So coming right back. The kishus and the avatiyah that the Gemara established, given that they mutate one into the other. Rabbi Yehuda only spoke about kishus and malafafine, asur, kalayim. He never spoke about kishus and avatiyah. So says the Gemara, kishus v'avatiyah ma'oma Rabbi Yehuda. Answers the Gemara, nishme'ina min hadda. I will clarify it from the following, and now the Gemara is going to quote the Sefta Abraisam hakishuin v'ha'avatichin v'ha'malafafais einam kalayim zebozem. What the Mishnah did not say explicitly, what we extrapolated from the Gemara here, the Braisa does say explicitly, right? In other words, since the Chachamim hold that even kishuin and malafafanois are not kalayim because they go through the avatiyach, clearly all 3 are not kalayim. And here we have it. And Rabbi Yehuda says on that, yes, kalayim. In other words, even though we are not having a machlekes and mitzias, nevertheless, in other words, l'kula alma, a kishus could become an avatiyach. Doesn't matter. Rabbi Yehuda does not consider the fact that one could mutate into the other. It doesn't make them one type. That's a gavaldik machlekes. That's a very deep machlekes. Doesn't matter that they mutate. So what? Prior to mutating, they're considered 2 different meanings. Yes?
Kishri in Hebrew says zucchini.
Okay, here we go, another sheet. Want you to know that there's a beautiful, the original Sefer Hadoides. I have it. His great-grandson became a big Baal Tshuva when I was in yeshiva, and he wrote a Kabbalah Yid, and he made a new Sefer Hadoides with illustrations. But the original Sefer Hadoides, written by a Rishon, speaks about that before the Doir Hamabul, because of man's bad choices, that a type of species of monkeys came from men. We mutated into monkeys. And it's amazing. So when the world is finding now all these excavations and they're finding these in between a man and a monkey, and they're trying to use that to back up, I think it was Darwin and the other Apicorson, right, that had this agenda to deny that God created the world somehow by saying that we came from monkeys. Actually, monkeys come from men. The mutation, clear. Now, and Machlal, it's not, I'm going even, I just remembered that in the beginning, after Chet Adam, Oy Gewalt, there's a shtickle, I remember I read it for my kids many years ago, all different types of creatures, midgets and giants and people with one eye and people, the Bigfoot and Yennefoot and everything that you read about. It all came from Adam and Chava. But it doesn't mean that they are min Adam. It's not, if you were to find them, they're not Adam. They came from Adam. That's a machlokes.
Animals came before Adam.
Animals came before Adam, but there are certain types of creatures that God allowed our human being to mutate into as a warning that if we act animal-like, we'll become animals. Okay, let's go back. Now, Frechtinger says, the Gemara, hold on, Neymar, the Gemara is going to try to say it's not correct. Why don't we learn Pshat in the Braisa different? That's clear, guys. There's no way around that. The Mishnah said, Havatiach are also not Kalayim. And on the Vatiach and the Melafafim, there, Rabbi Yehuda says they are Kalayim. In other words, maybe Rabbi Yehuda is only arguing regarding Avatich and Melafafim. What's the topic over there? We just said it. The topic is that a Melafafim comes from an Avatich and a Tapuach. It's another topic. You make a crossbreed. So the question is, can you take the child, the mamzer, and be meshadachim with one of the parents? So for that, the Chachamim say, not Kalayim, not mutation, crossbreed. Why do Chachamim say not Kalayim? Because since the Melafafim is born from the Avatiach and the Tapuach, so you can be meshadachit with the Avatiach. It's the same species from the father's side, by the mother's side. And Rabbi Yehuda says no, that a crossbreed is considered a min b'fnei yatzmai. But maybe Rabbi Yehuda was never addressing mutations. So the Gemara says, indeed, maybe that will be the pshat and the braisa, and therefore, let's get used to nusach Yerushalmi, hakishus, v'havatiach. The word sricha means we have to look into it. We had this already many times together. Hakishu and chanami. No, l'shitas Rabbi Yehuda, we have a tzricha. Tzricha means we need to further inquire. In the Babli, it would say teku. That's a teku. In the Babli, will be a tzricha. We need more clarity. We don't know. We don't know what Rabbi Yehuda were to hold. Okay, weiter. Now, we had in the Mishnah, guys, we're going back to Halacha Beis, Chazeres. Chazeres, we quoted also from Pesachim Daf Lamed Tes. Chazeres means romaine lettuce. It's definitely a lettuce. And Chazeres Galim. The Mishnah says that they are the same type. Says Rabbi Chananya Amar. All of these Gemaras will be clarifying not the first, but the second. Chazeres is known. Chazeres is chasa. That's what the Gemara says in Pesachim. What's Chazeres Galim? Chasa the igroin. The word igroin means it grows on a mound. It grows on a wave. And because of that, it's a little bit different, but it's still the same for this halach. Right. The Mishnah went on to say that you have Ulshin Sada, Kedation Sada. So again, just to clarify what the latter one is, Shimon Berei Derebi Abba Amar. That what is this Ulshin? Ulshin is Antuvin, and we're going to go with either it's endives. That's the way we said it when we learned Pesachim, or Antuvin. I'm sorry, with Aveis. Antuvin is chicory, and Kevin can put a picture on. Rabbi Yosi, but Abun Amar, that Ulshin is Teroik Simoin. Teroik Simoin, according to many, is the same. Teroik Simoin in Greek is chicory. So they're not arguing. They just want to make it. They want to make sure that we know what we're talking about. What's Ulshay Hasadeh? Ulshay Hasadeh is Ulsin the Chaklom, chicory that grows in the field. Wild Ulshin that normally is not cultivated. It grows on its own. The next category in the Mishnah was Kedation. What is Kedation? It's Karte. Karte are leeks. What's Kedation? Hasadeh Kafloitin. These are, he says, large bubbled leeks. Now, the Mishnah says that the las hamitzvahs is allowed to be planted with remutza. So the las hamitzvahs is Egyptian gourd. When we said remutza, we said ember gourd. What's that ember gourd? So clarifies the Gemara that masnisa our Mishnah l'chu'ura to look at Rab Nechemya. So even though in the Mishnah we had one machlokes tanoim only, now the Gemara is saying that actually the final case in the Mishnah is subject to another machlekes tanoim, even though Rabbeinu Hakadosh for some reason did not bring it down. The Tani b'shem Rabbi Nechemia, that the las aramis is the las hamitzvos, that this type of the las is kalayim both with Yavanis, with the Greek word, and it's also kalayim with remutza. Unlike our Mishnah that says the las hamitzvos and remutza are allowed to be planted together. So that's a machlekes. Now, why are we calling it remutza? Remutza means embers. Embers is like ashes, right? Ember, the fire is going down. So the Gemara is going to clarify. What's remutza? Says the Gemara, Amar Abchinana, Kimin the last marahi. It's a certain type of a bitter gourd that you can't eat it when you just harvest it off the ground. However, how do you make it edible? How do you sweeten it? Beremetz, by putting it in embers. Something odd. The little that I know I have in my backyard, I have a avocado tree. And the avocados, the tree, something is wrong with the tree. The avocados were never ripe. Someone told me they're never ripe. It's not special. We're not special. After you take it off the tree, you have to put it in a bag. Or put it with apples. I forgot the technique. I know how to eat it. I don't know exactly, but something has to be done. So that's this. And remutza means that this type of gourd, you want to eat it, you got to first put it into embers. And now the final case in the Mishnah was pul hamitzri and charuv. And we already said it. When we spoke about the charuv, the Mishnah is not talking about carob trees. Mishnah is just talking about kilei zerayim. A carob tree is an ilan. So when it says charuv, Amar Rabbi Yoina, that the charuv of our Mishnah is not a tree, it's a vegetable. It's kamin, pul. Now just the Rash Arilio takes the word mitzvah out. The Rash Arilio has kamin, pul, parsihu. Yeah, Kevan. It's a bean from you. And uketzotzoi damyon lacharuva. Its pods resemble pods of a carob. In other words, the pods. I found a picture yesterday on Google. Even maybe I found the wrong one. It was like a green. It wasn't like a charuv, but it was thin and it was crooked. So there's a similarity of how they look similar, and that's why they call them a charuv. But really, we're speaking about a bean pod, beans. Atkan halacha beis. Now moving on to halacha gimel, which is the final Mishnah. B'negei kilei zerayim. Says the Mishnah. Let's go again. Lefes and nafos. So lefes is a turnip, and nafos, we're not clear what it means. And from the Rambam, we have that it's a type of radish, and let's go with that. And we're going to get back to that in the Gemara. So imagine a turnip and a radish are considered the same species, but only these two. Hakaruv bahate ruftoir. Kruv is cabbage, and teruftoir, when he's speaking about wild cabbage, perhaps we're speaking about cauliflower. And what we will see from the Gemara clearly that teruftoir is smaller than ordinary cabbage. That's clear. They are considered the same type. The next is teradin and lo'unin. Just to make one thing clear, that teradin, what's teradin in modern Hebrew? Beets. The type of beets that we have right now, they did not have then. The red beet or the sugar beet, they were cultivated only recently. So just to make that clear. But it was the origin of the types of beets that we have right now. So teradin and lo'unin, whatever lo'unin is, are allowed to be planted together. Einam kalayim zebozem. Now we have the Rabbi Akiva that's going to add another 3 pears, which only according to him may not be planted together. Rabbi Akiva, right in the Yerushalmi, Rabbi Akiva spelled with the hey at the end. Hashum v'hashumanis, garlic and wild garlic. The Gemara will clarify that this shumanis is a garlic that only has a single clove, but it's still garlic. That's why they're considered halachically one species. Habatzel v'habitsalzel, an onion and a wild onion. L'chu'ura, it's a small type of onion. And turmus, which is Egyptian lupin, and hapeluslus, wild lupin. The Gemara will speak a bit more about the lupin. Einam kalayim zebozem. Now, just for the clarity that the Rambam paskins like the Tanakama, that these two lupins, lupin, I did it because Danny is on the line, so I go to Google. There's a Google pronunciation. So I get the picture and I get the pronunciation to be able to challenge the ones who are challenging me. But I still stand there. If Google made a mistake, I'm soymech on Google. Okay. So anyways, we don't paskin like Rabbi Akiva, and turmus and pelusmus are not allowed to be planted together. Azoi. Okay. So that's the mission. Says the Gemara, let's go back. Lefes and nafois. Now here actually you have a gears of nafois. Okay. You know, it's amazing. Look, just to appreciate the Yerushalmi. You look at the Shinu Nuschayis. You know how many changes he made? That he goes through the whole Aleph base and he begins again with the Aleph base. Where do you have such a thing? Imagine how hard it used to be to learn the Yerushalmi. Look at this. So I'm saying to look all the way in the bottom because Nafais is not the first base. Normally you can say it's Ois base, number 2 Ois base. Either it's nothing or Nafaites. Okay, anyways, whatever it is, these are L'cha'ira, different types of radishes. Back Daf Gimel Amid Beis. Hakruf Fahat Teruf Toir. What is Teruf Toir? No, we're clarifying. The Gemara is clarifying the second one. It's Keruf Dakik. It's a small cabbage. Now I'm just curious, guys. Is cauliflower smaller than cabbage? Big Ashmis, I wouldn't know that.
If I had to guess, I'd go with Brussels sprouts because those are like mini cabbages.
I'm asking cauliflower because they're quoting from people. Is cauliflower physically smaller than cabbage?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sometimes.
Danny's the big chef here. Okay, now you're really stepping on his toes.
On the Sabrina diet,
yes.
You can have cauliflower and cabbage.
Okay, next. Turadin, which is a certain type of beet, and halounin. So taichas the Gemara again. What's the second one? It's chamuyoyin. Chamuyoyin means it's a type of let's say radish, but that's bitter, has a bitter taste. Again, it's not the red beets, it's the original borscht. Choisev Rabbi Akiva, the other 3 groups, Hashum and Hashumanis. So again, the Gemara wants to clarify what is Shumanis. Shumanis is Tum Nisa. Tum Nisa is a garlic that has a single bulb. The Mishnah says, according to Rabbi Akiva, Habatzel v'Habitzaltzul. Again, what's the second? What's the Habitzaltzul? Let's go with the Girsa. Pelal Gula. Pelal Gula means a wild onion. Pelal Gula, actually, the Rash Shadilio, Rabbi Kukla, he writes 6 lines on the right column. In the beginning of the line, Pelal Gula says that Ashadilio, Tsunoinois is radish. Tsunoinois Russian Arabi is pigla. The Yesh Mefarshim Betzel Shal Yad. So either it's a certain type of wild onion, at least it sounds like Betzel, but according to the Rash, it's a Chiddush. We're saying that an onion and a radish are the same. David is shaking it, he's happy. Yeah, makes sense to you? You have to have a chef that will appreciate this. How the Mashadach.
Radish can be very sharp, just like
Radish can be very sharp. Yeah. Okay. Then the Haturmus.
Persians eat radishes and onions together.
Turmos is white lupin and hapeluslus. So what's peluslus? Taichus the Gemara. It's wild lupin, that they're considered one according to Rabbi Akiva. And again, the Rambam does not paskin like Rabbi Akiva. And now, guys, that Gimel Amid Beis, we're moving on to grafting. Unlike, like we mentioned, in the first 3 Mishnayos, and whether Rabbi Yechanan said it, whether Rav said it, whether they both said it, that even though the Mishnah gave a lot of hetadim, the hetadim were only for the 2 that were mentioned together. So Chitin and Zunin, going back to the beginning of the Pedic, are allowed to be planted together in Eretz Yisrael. But So'irim cannot be with not chitin or not zunin, and so is shabay lashul. In other words, a member of one group cannot be with the other group. Here, the Mishnah is going to begin by giving two groups of trees that are allowed to be planted together, grafted together. And as we'll see, it means any one of these four with any other one of the four. That's what it means over here. So Ube'ilan, says the Mishnah, first of all is ho agasin. Now we know, let's go with an agas is a peer. In modern Hebrew, that's the way they say it. And v'hakerus kamlin. So kirus kamlin says the Pnei Moshe on the top third line, min agasim ketanim. It's a certain small pear. The doimen la'afatzim. It looks like a walnut. So it's a little petal. And okay, so it makes sense. Pear. The next is Perishin quince, right? Quinces. It's pronounced Kwins, just for the record. Quince and Azradim. Azradim is Azarel. Azarel, if I cooked in Google, it's a red-orange type of fruit. And you know what? It has to be cooked like quince. Neither of them can be eaten without them being prior cooked properly. Okay, so these are the two groups that we said are really four that are considered in the same species, and therefore you could make harkava. However, now the Mishnah is telling you that which you may not be markev one or the other. Now, obviously, the Mishnah is not going to say that you can be markev two trees that you know are b'chlal not shayach. So everything the Mishnah is going to say now has to be a chiddush. And we'll have to figure out what's the chiddush. Hatapuach v'achizror. So chizror, everyone says, is a variety of an apple. So there's a chiddush. Apple, you might think they're the same. You're not the same. The next is parsikin, which are peaches, and shkedim. Now, the question is, why would you think that a peach and an almond, why would you think they are allowed to be planted together? So they say a gavaldik word over here. Guys, the seed of a peach, think about it, resembles an almond nut.
It's true.
Ah.
Yeah, when you break open the pit.
Thank you. Dan agrees. And not only that, when almonds are young, they are covered with a fuzz.
Yeah.
So there are similarities, says the Mishnah. Nevertheless, they're considered two different types of species.
That thing inside the peach is poisonous.
I know, but by the way, almonds can also be poisonous. Yeah. Almonds that are their bitter almonds and the sweet almonds we have in Hasidus about. Hashizvin is either a plum or it's a fruit that is named after our people. It's called a jujube. Yeah, that's how it's pronounced. Jujube. It's a Chinese date. I became the big maven because I spent some time on Google. Yes, that's all it is. Or it's a plum. So this shizvin is not allowed to be grafted into rimin. Rimin are thorn jujubes. Next. Nevertheless, chidish kalayim zebozeh. Let's begin. That the second group in the ratio of the Mishnah or the items that einam kalayim zebozeh for grafting was perishim. That's a quince. And a quince is some sort of yellow pear. I just want you to know. And that's taka why we're going to see that, like we mentioned, all four types are allowed to be grafted together. They are all in the category of pears. That's what they are. So Amar Rabbi Yoina, that vos idos aperishin as par ligin. That's what it is. Again, that's the quince, what we're calling. Because it's not edible. It's mamish not edible. Like we mentioned before of remutza. Certain things, when you take them off the tree, you got to do something with it. Here, you got to cook them. Prior to cooking them, and that's why they call perishin. Parish liquidata. Well, next. Says the Gemara that Shalman, Bar Levi, we had Shalman and Bavli a few times. Ochoy the Zavdi bar Levi. So Shalman, the brother of Zavdi, in the name of Rabbi Shua ben Levi, says that Kuloin Zugay Zugais, that all 4 trees listed in the Mishnah, the Agasim, and the Kerus Tamlin, and the Perishin, and the Hoaz Radim, even though the Mishnah mentioned them in groups of pairs, really, like we mentioned, all of them are allowed to be planted one with the. I take it back. He says that every group is a group of Fnei Atzman. He says that Kulam Zugay Zugay is the way Rabbi Yechanan said before. However, Rav disagrees, and Rav says no, that this is unique. Okay, good. Clarify. Achloikus over here of the early Amorai. That Kulain Minechon. Now the Gemara is going to bring a raya from a Braisa to the sheet of Rav. That Masnisa Braisa, it won't be Pliga al Rav. Clearly, this Mishnah will agree. Will be the Messiah al Rav. It will be Pliga on Shalman, Pliga on Rabbi Shua ben Levi. That it says Af Ha-Bechoyim. The Braisa adds a fifth item. Here's a problem. The Braisa mentions the Mishnah 4 types, 2 and 2, and then it says Af Ha-Bechoyim. I don't know what Bechoyim is, but I know one thing. If the 2 are separated, then the Braisa should have said to which group the Bechoyim belongs to. The Braisa didn't do that. Group of two is a raya that the 2 and 2 themselves can be planted with each other. So now that there is an opinion that adds another, it's to all of them. Is a raya to Rav. Beautiful. Rabbi Yossi Berabun, instead of bringing a raya to Rav, challenges Shalman, challenges B'Shem Rabbi Shua ben Levi. That it says in a Braisa, another Braisa, there is a 5th item added, Af Ha-Rug Yoyin, Rug Yonin. Again, the Braisa adds a 5th. Here also, that Braisa. The Braisa should have clarified to which one of the groups are we adding it to. The Braisa didn't do it. Again, all of this is a proof to the way Rav understood the Mishnah, which is a chiddush, because that means that the Mishnah is not being consistent. Or the way we learned it is that, how did the first Mishnah begin? Then the Mishnah went to enumerate another 5 groups. Right, so and then at the end, why didn't the Mishnah look on the halacha dalet? The Mishnah should have says that Agasim and Akirista Molin Einam Kalaim Zebozeh. And then the Mishnah should have says Perishon Eno Azarodim Ein Kalaim Zebozeh. That will be the fact that the Mishnah didn't do that. It's mamish beautiful. That's because all 4 of them are allowed to be planted one with the other. Says the Gemara, B'shuki, B'shoiki, Shaltzi Poiden. We're not talking about the marketplace. Shuki, Shoiki, that's you, hustle. In Shoiki means irrigated fields. Shoiki, Shaltzi Poiden, Hoyu Markivin, Kerus, Tamlin, Al Gabi Agos, which is exactly the way they say it in the Mishnah. That's the first set. Even according to Rabbi Shua ben Levi, you're allowed to do it. And Ra'am Talmud Echad, then one student saw them planting, grafting these 2 trees one into the other. And Omar Lohen, Asurimatem, you're not allowed to do that. This Talmud didn't learn the Mishnah. He only learned Bavli. He didn't learn Mishnah. He didn't learn Torah. The entire Halchu Uksasim. Now I want to say something which is important. That will be the big takeaway from today also. That there's something amazing when it comes to grafting. Guys, listen to these words. If something was grafted to each other, it has to be cut down. It has to be destroyed. Even though the wood that you end up with and or the seeds of the fruits that you end up with are allowed to be replanted. It's like a paradox. It's by like kerem, it's also by no. There is an obligation by a tree that was illegally grafted, it has to be destroyed. Sounds like it's asur b'hana. It's not. You have to destroy the tree, but now you can replant those branches, or you can replant the seeds, which is what we do. I mean, tangerine is a hardcover of fruit. Asur doiraisa, asur midrabanan and chutz la'aretz. You're allowed to replant it even in Israel. Yeah. In other words, either you don't have to uproot it. No, you have to destroy it. So you have to destroy it. You have to destroy that tree. Anyway, so the Talmud went ahead. They didn't know the Mishnah. They saw people planting Krustamlin and Agas. So they destroyed it. And then after they destroyed it, they went to ask a Shaila. I know many people like this. First, you destroy, then you ask, Bo Sha'alu biyavne, did we do the right thing? After the fact, Amalahem, that me, Shapaga Bochem, that whoever came with that information was Mitalmide Beishamai. So at least it's not, I'll take it back. They were not learned. They learned another Mishnah. Rabbeinu HaKadosh didn't even bring Shitas Beishamai, who argues with our Mishnah. But what he meant to say is that in Yavna they said, no, the Talmud did wrong because they followed Beishamai. But we don't paskin like Beishamai. And therefore they would have to pay back for the damage that they did. I mean,
held that this was also Kilayim?
No, fakert. Our Mishnah is Beis Hillel. Our Mishnah, the Chiddush is that many times Rabbi brings both opinions in the Mishnah. Rabbi didn't even bring Shitas Beishamai. The Talmud, he's called a Talmud. He's not called an Amma Aretz. He went to the yeshiva of Shammai. He went to the different yeshiva. Lo yomru elo, says the Gemara, elo kurus temil al gaba agas. Ho agas al gaba chizror. Agas al gaba chizror. Where do we have, guys, this in the second part of the Mishnah, right? The Mishnah says that what may you not do tapuach and chizror. So if you take the ratio of the Mishnah with one of the seifah, that's taka forbidden. So the Gemara wants to make a clarity over here, even according to Beis Hillel. Let's go by it. Says in the Braisa, B'tchum Oriyach. Let's go with the pshat that Oriyach is the name of a place. Tchum means in the suburbs, right? In the Tchum Shabbos of Oriyach, again another story. Hoyu Markiven. This is the biggest agadata you'll get in Yerushalmi. Enjoy it. Amaisa. Hoyu Markiven Tabuch Gaba Chizror. They grafted the Reisha with the Seifah. Now that we know is prohibited. And again, Bo Talmud Echad. At least they gave him a warning. It wasn't Stam Wild. He told them this is forbidden. Then they went ahead and they cut it. Then they went to asking Yavne. Amalahen Yofa Amar Talmud. Oh, good gesagt. Not he did good. He said good. Taka forbidden. Now, Gemara is asking a question. Lo Amru Ella. Lo Amru that it's usher. Ella hatapuach. Al gaba chizrar l'chura ha chizr al gaba agas loy. In other words, what about planting an agas, which is in the first, in the case of the Mishnah, on top of a chizrar? When you read the story, you can come to an understanding that tapuach and chizrar is also our Mishnah. The Mishnah never said Chizr al Gaba Agas is asur. Maybe it's mutter. So says the Gemara, no, my dahava uvda have the uvda. In other words, the Chachamim in Yavne only dealt with the case that happened. They did not have to tell you explicitly all the implications of the Mishnah, but all the implications in the Mishnah is correct. In other words, the four in the Reisha are mutter with themselves. Any one of the four of the ratio with any ones in the Seifa are always going to be Asur. The Braisa only spoke about the Tapuach and Chizra because that is what happened. Right. 20 million in the Braisa. Goy, Shehirkit, Egois, Al-Gabi, Parsok. So the Mishnah spoke about, guys, which two did the Mishnah speak about? Parsekin and Shekedim, right? That was in the second case, in the second group of the Seifa. So he took an egois al gabe parsoi. So the Mishnah never spoke about it. Okay, the Mishnah only spoke about a shakek. He spoke about an egois. Even though a Jew is not allowed to do that, it's also also. Nevertheless, like we mentioned before, that noitel mimenu yichur, a yid is allowed to take a piece of branch of this crossbreeder tree that's done be'isur. That's the key the Gemara wants to say. In other words, like even though we mentioned those trees have to be cut down, nevertheless, you can have anah from those trees. Now, the case of the Braisa was that a goy planted it. Is a goy allowed to do that? That's the case that happened. Is a goy allowed to graft? So there's a big machloikas rishonim. The Rambam holds that a goy is also usher to graft. That's what we had in Chulin, right? The Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach are not just Sheva mitzvahs. They become 37, they go into 30. Then the Gemara says it became 100. We just don't know all of the details, the sub-details of the details. But there's a big question whether a goy is allowed or not. Mashma from our Gemara that a goy is allowed. Right? That's what we're saying. That a goy did it, that it's allowed. So first of all, you don't have to destroy it if a goy did it, if it was done by heter. But the ikar is that even though a Jew is not allowed to do it, now that it's done, a Jew can take a piece of that tree and replant it. And what will be the result of grafting this egois on the peach? What comes out of it? Now that we say that it's smutter, we can speak about it. Says the Gemara, Kadraya Parsekaya. Kadraya Parsekaya says the Pnei Moshe Kach Shemoy.
Sephardic peaches.
Sephardic peaches. That Kedeiros Ushchoiros. That Aparsekon Shchoiren, black peaches, dark peaches. That's what comes out.
Racism.
Yes.
Rabbi, can we put quinces and apples together?
Can we put quinces
and pears? I'm sorry, and pears.
No,
they're the same family.
Doesn't matter because tapuach is already mentioned in the Sefer of the Mishnah. Anything that's mentioned, the 6
got it.
trees are all kalaim zebuzah.